I'm going to teach you the art of a million strokes. I'm standing here on a lawn with a lot of grass. Imagine I could lift up every little piece of grass magically into the air, and I could just like shift them around however I wanted and make an art piece out of it. I've written an Android application that lets you do the same thing, all that power inside. To that magic, I want to tell you a little story of a samurai student. He was like on top of a mountain in a monastery, in a samurai monastery. And the sensei made him every day sit down with a bucket of water, and he like made him hit the surface of the water. So that went on all year, and the little student went home for summer break, and as he got home to like his friends and family, they asked him, "Hey, what did you do on that mountain?" And he told them, "Oh, I hit a bucket of water all year long." And they told him he's a fool, a stupid little fool. And so this young man was very angry. When he returned to the monastery, he went to the chief monk, who was sitting in a study behind a giant big wooden desk. Like the desk was like really thick, like heavy wood. And he walked up to the desk and he told the senior samurai teacher, "I've had it. I'm not gonna hit the bucket anymore." And as anger came over him, like he hit the table with his fist, and the table split in the middle. And as a student kind of looked at that, he realized that whole years that he spent hitting that surface of the water, each time he hit it, the water tension got a little bit tougher, and he had to hit it a little harder, and he had built up an immense striking power. So in order to learn the art of a million strokes, I have to take you to some basics. So hang on with me. To learn the art of a million strokes, you must learn two skills: string rewriting and turtle graphics. String rewriting starts with an axiom. That's a fancy term for starting string, and our starting string, let's say, is AB. Now we can have replacement rules. I can make a rule that every A becomes an ABA, and every B becomes a BB. So this works pretty much like string replacement in Word document. I say find A and replace with that. So find A, I replace it with ABA. I find B and replace with 3 B's. That's the first layer. The second layer repeats the same thing. I take A and replace it with ABA. I take B, triple B, A becomes ABA. And these guys, BBB, BB, B, BB, B. Pretty easy, right? Skill number 2, turtle graphics. I don't have a turtle, but I have a little ducky. And I'll hold my pen after the ducky, and I can tell the ducky to go forward. It goes forward. I can tell it to turn left and go forward and right, forward, left, forward. You can imagine my duck swimming across a pond or a turtle crawling along the beach. It's a way of kind of drawing a continuous line with direction changes. In math, we like to create symbols for things. So I can call this line forward f, and I can turn this little turn minus. Then I can call this line an f. So here I had to make two turns. So I have plus, plus, and here I have another line. Here I get another turn, or minus, and I get a line f. So if I put this together, I have f minus f plus plus f minus f. Now if you're paying close attention, I just told you about string replacement, about how I had a very simple string, instead of making this like massive long line of string characters. And then I showed you how to draw lines. And I think it's starting to dawn on you. So if I now did a string replacement where every f becomes an f minus f plus plus f minus f, then I'd have f minus f plus plus f and a rather long string. When we go back to this drawing, because there are so many more f's, I'm going to draw my lines shorter. So if you look at the second string, it has an f minus f plus plus f minus f. And we can do the same thing here. F minus f plus plus f plus line. And you notice how the initial pattern starts repeating, and if we did the substitution another round, we'd get little jagged things here. And you see how we already have like probably 2 dozen. Hi, and now we're inside of the Android application. This is a settings screen, and we can create our axiom. So F means a line forward. If you look in the preview on the very left hand side, you'll see a thin line. Plus plus means 2 turns. F, another line. Plus plus, F, and we've drawn a triangle. I have chosen a triangle just to make things a little more interesting. If you ever get confused about plus signs and F signs, you can always go to help. And here's a little legend on what the symbols are that you have available. Now for rules, I want to enter the patterns that we just looked at on the sheet of paper. So F means a line, F is a turn, F, turn around. And you can kind of see the previous updating funny graphics until we get the string perfectly. And you see our triangle turned into something that looks more like a star. And if we run it again, we start to see the repeating pattern. And so it's looking like a snowflake. And you can see we have like a lot of tiny little lines right now already. When you look very quickly, you can see in the little windows that pops up for the rendering, it'll tell you how many lines. So we had 28,000 lines. And in this case, that's kind of where the screen resolution tops out. Let's take a look at something more complex so we get closer to our million stroke art. The dragon curve. If you look at this, there's an interesting pattern here. Notice that there's an X, and X doesn't do absolutely nothing to the actual drawing, However, we can use it to create more interesting replacement rules. Look down at the rules. X gets replaced with this pattern, so it has another X and a Y. And Y is another helper letter that doesn't draw anything. However, we can replace it with something else. And in the line below, we have a Y that gets replaced with something else. And this is a little bit for you learning Million Strokes Samurai Sensei to get more tricks into your toolbox. So if you render this, it doesn't look like much, it's just like two lines at an angle. However, if you do it again, and again, and again, and again, remember these are all string replacements, we start getting interesting patterns, and I think right about now it's pretty rocking. Isn't this cool? You can get closer to that image of like having like a million grass straws rising up into the air and like rearranging them. You can create really interesting macro and micro patterns with those simple initial rules. Here is the coolest example of all. I've discovered this yesterday and called it Sickness. This looks like a pretty simple rule set. We start with an F, and here it gets a little interesting. Notice how it sets the angle to 10 degrees. 10 degrees just can create a lot of interesting pattern, because usually if you have 90 degrees, you can only have vertical and horizontal lines. With 10 degrees, you can have lines going in all different directions. And the replacement rule has also something interesting for your toolbox. Notice this open and closing bracket. That's a syntax that helps you remember a certain spot on the screen. The opening bracket remembers the current point, and the closing bracket jumps back to that point. If you go back to our little turtle or little rubber ducky, imagine the closing bracket transports with Star Trek magic the duck back to where the bracket was opened. So let's get into this. And this doesn't look like too much yet. This looks like a little, it could be like some grass. Okay, we got a little more. Now it's starting to look kind of artsy, and there's more art, there's like this flaring and intensity. And bam, now we got something bushy. And now we're starting to get a vortex. And notice, in the calculations, we're now at 500,000 strokes. This is what 500,000 strokes looks like, just directed with a few little characters. Now, that's the magic of 1,000,000 strokes.